Hello and welcome back to this episode of Beyond the Hashtag. And I'm really, really excited to have this week's guest on, Fiona Cromwell from Designability UK. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really, really good. I was just really happy to have you on the podcast because I just love, love, love what you guys do. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what your role is and also what Designability is all about.
Sure. So I work for Designability, which is a UK-wide charity. So we're based in Bath, but we cover all of the UK. So we enable disabled people to live with greater independence by designing products that will help them in their day-to-day lives to improve and enrich their life. And enable them to do more of the things that they want to do. So I'm the marketing and communications officer. So I've got a real blend in my role of digital and offline, if you want to call it that, more traditional marketing stuff. So digital is obviously all our social media and our website, email marketing, and then I do a lot of the other stuff relating to kind of exhibitions and printed marketing materials and PR as well.
Wow, huge role.
Yeah, it's quite meaty.
Out of interest, what do you like the most? Digital,
Oh.
traditional comms, offline, online?
So actually I do prefer the digital stuff only because I feel like it's so transitional and it's ever evolving, and I think there's just more you can do with it. You could be more agile with digital marketing. I feel like I really like going to the exhibitions when I get opportunity to do that and help other colleagues at things like that, because I think actually meeting the people we support is really important to working for a charity, because it just keeps you in touch with why you're doing what you eat, what you do, and I think
Yeah.
that's really important. But yeah, I think digital similarly opens up a whole world of communicating with not just the people we support, but donors or prospective donors and professionals who might want to link in and refer people for our services. So yeah, I just think it just opens up a world of opportunity that you wouldn't otherwise have if the internet didn't exist. So yeah, I kind of find it quite exciting.
Nice. I think that's the whole podcast done there. You've just summarized everything
Let's
up.
go have a cup of tea.
Summarized up perfectly. Like that is just the opportunity and the exciting opportunity that I say we've never had before for people to connect with, let's face it, billions of people if they needed to, wanted to, and could at the touch of a button, which is pretty epic.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. What sort of things do you enjoy the most when it comes to digital comms in the specificity of the work that you do for designability? What do you enjoy the most?
I would probably say, yeah, I think talking to the people that we support, so specifically the WYSIBUG, which is a fun-powered wheelchair that we still build it ourselves in a workshop in Bath,
Wow.
and we loan that out free of charge to families across the UK. And I think talking to families, whether it's digitally or in person, but digitally certainly I've got more chance to do that, and hearing their stories, like they're coming from all different walks of life, got really different sort of scenarios in terms of the experience that they're going through raising a disabled child, but similarly there's lots of similarities, and I think for me it's being able to tell their story through social media, through our website, but also it's connecting those families. So we actually have a Facebook group, which is a private group that we established quite a few years ago in response to the fact there was no channel for them to actually talk to one another and sort of share similar experiences with having a WYSIBUG powered wheelchair. So that's sort of gone on to the meeting up if they're local to one another, but sharing sort of days out that are accessible with the powered wheelchairs and things like that. So that's really lovely. And actually from that, we've actually been able to sort of utilize a lot of user generated content,
Nice.
because it's a closed space, they will quite freely share videos and images through that. And once we go on to get some media consent, we can sometimes then share it more publicly across our platforms, which, yeah, I just don't think you can really beat that kind of real life touch. Like, it's great to have the polished images, particularly for marketing materials and things like that, where it's like really big, large scale. But for online and for social, people expect that sort of reality, and it doesn't have to look polished, it doesn't have to look perfection. And I think yeah, just showing what any parent would capture of their child experiencing something or exploring in their
Yeah.
wheelchair is, yeah, that's really rewarding for me.
I think that's beautifully put in terms of the power of social, because I've just come back from Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, and one of the speakers there is a lady I admire very much called Mari Smith, and she talks a lot about Facebook organic reach. And we've been talking about Facebook groups for years now, really, and they go in waves of interest from people, but actually when they're utilized correctly, and that utilization is about fostering a community, that is when you see some really special things happening. Not setting up a group as your business in order to like funnel people through and you never talk to them, but actually, as you said, you've strategically created a safe enclosed space for people of shared experience to come together and talk about those experiences and build relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's fascinating, but absolutely the right and perfect way to utilize Facebook groups, which has, I'm guessing, an impact on your Facebook page itself.
Yeah, it definitely drives more traffic to it, and that interaction, particularly if we are resharing and repurposing content that they might have shared in that space and given us consent to share on our public page, means that they then naturally
Look,
then interact and they share their own images. And it's
yeah,
that whole, I think people find it quite rewarding to be able to share where they've got to with something that they've got from us, a product, and then to be able to sort of share that experience more widely online. I think it's rewarding in itself for a parent to show how far their child's come with their mobility, and being able to use something
definitely,
like that to get some more independence. So it's really
definitely.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah, could agree more. So what other channels do you want? So you've got your Facebook page.
So yeah, we've got everything. So we got Facebook. I would say Facebook and Instagram probably the most interaction, most engagement is on those two platforms. But we have Twitter and LinkedIn. And actually, one thing I was going to sort of talk about was the fact that originally we really saw LinkedIn as exclusively professional. Like that's just for job vacancies, that's just for project updates, very technical, all of those sort of behind the scenes things in terms of our staff.
Yeah,
But about a year ago I was like, it wasn't really doing much. There wasn't much chat on there wasn't many comment, people just weren't really landing on that page and sort of getting involved with what we were sharing content wise. So I
mm-hmm.
just started using more of the light-hearted whizzybug stories, and actually not even rewording the copy that much from what I would put on Facebook, which I guess people are generally more informal on there, depending on their
Yeah,
business or charity. And actually, it's done really well. And it's because people on LinkedIn, spoiler alert, are human beings. Like they're not, they're not they're not corporate robots that just want to read dry, bland copy and stories. They actually, I think, particularly in the voluntary sector, they
yeah,
want those happy stories. And actually, it is like our audience has grown, like doubled in size on there. And it's
that's
still very
awesome.
modest, but by comparison,
Yeah,
it's so much bigger just because we're sharing those just normal family happy stories. And yeah, I don't know why we didn't do it sooner really, but it was kind of a trial thing. We were like, well, let's just put it on there as well. And
yeah,
actually there was no extra work involved. It was just one extra post on a different page, and it's done really well. So
yeah. No, I love
definitely.
that. Yeah, you've tried something, but what's most important there is that you've reflected on and you've taken the time to look at what you've done somewhere and you've gone, that's not working.
Yeah.
Um, because so many marketeers or people who aren't even marketeers but are using social or any sort of platform, that we don't do that enough. They'll put stuff out and just say, well, we do it that way because we've always done it, but they don't take the time to go, well, oh, okay, well, we've actually been doing this for like 8 months now and nothing's happening. What could we do differently?
Yeah, I think we're probably we shy away a little bit, like you say, from the norm and what the general routine is.
Yeah.
And I think even though trends change so rapidly online, I think we are loath to embrace them too soon till we've seen it
Mm,
trialed by others that either succeed or fail with it a little bit. But yeah, other than that, TikTok, we have got a page,
good.
but I haven't really done much strategy around what we want to put on there. So I just need to give it a bit more thought, but I think certainly Whizzybug stories will do well on there. We have posted one on there that did quite well, and I think any sort of success stories and sort of positivity does well on there, where
Yeah.
people can follow a journey. So yeah, keen to do a bit more of that, I think.
Yeah, I think also for your message and for what you do, it is very emotional led, and it's you can really get invested in a journey.
Yeah.
And you've got so many stories of those journeys to tell. that they're always going to be the best type of content that you can share. It's impact, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely impact. And that's something we're always trying to improve on, how we communicate that to really
Yeah.
show that cause and effect, which is really important for us.
I think for many charities, I'm sure you'd agree, is like people will part ways with their cash if they can really buy into the why.
Yeah.
Why should I
Yeah,
do
that
this?
purpose, that sort of purpose-driven message, I think, is crucial. And I think we're constantly trying to refine it. But I think, yeah, over the years, we've certainly kind of narrowed down exactly how we're going to tell that. So I think we're getting better at it.
Nice. What other sort of results then does social media deliver for you guys? And so you've obviously fostered this wonderful community of parents who are using and loaning the WYSIBUG.
Yeah.
What else sort of impact wise or results wise, what do you think social does for you?
I think another key thing for us that has worked well and continues to work well is how we engage with the disabled community in general. So not necessarily people who are using things that we've designed here and now, but actually might do in the future. So kind of more broadly, we call it user engagement,
Hmm.
but also it's sort of because at the heart of the ethos of what designability does is human-centered design. So basically, we won't design or produce any prototype or final product without input and buy-in effectively from disabled people who may use it. So that is
Perfect.
right from the beginning of a project. So at the moment, we've got something we're working on is a pushchair for manual wheelchair users.
Okay.
And basically, right from the beginning of the project, we've involved people who use manual wheelchairs because it doesn't make sense to us to not do that because they are the experts, they're the ones with the lived experience. And with their insight and their input and their involvement, that is what is ultimately going to lead to whatever we design being a success. So we've been able to harness using social media to seek their views, really, and I think the beauty of it is they could be up in Scotland, they could be, I don't know, the Outer Hebrides somewhere, or right down at the outer cusp of Cornwall, but we can still do that digitally with them. Obviously, in an ideal world, they could maybe do some testing on the actual product itself, which we have done, and we're going to be doing the final testing this year. But obviously it means they can still contribute because they're able to email, we're able to do video calls and just kind of hear their views on what we're doing and what would work best for them, as either current parents or expectant parents. So that is always what we use. Social media is like the first place we go to try and get those
Wow.
people on board, and it generally always has really good results.
It's such a fantastic way to look at it because I would say we would harp on to a lot of people, say harp on to a lot of people about like use social, use your community to survey them and implement those changes to your service or product because you're going to grow a raving fan base if you do.
Yeah.
And so again, that's just such a beautiful example of you you implementing that idea that actually you need to build what you offer from a customer focused first and foremost. Like, what's the point in you making assumptions about what they want?
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes perfect logical sense, and that's the way we've always worked. But it
Yeah.
means, the great thing about it is we can do it for every stage of the project. So even if whoever was involved at the beginning, maybe they don't want to continue, being involved in and helping us with it, or we might need a slightly different demographic for the next testing or whatever it might be. And the best thing is that generally those people then stay in touch with us. So they could be future fundraisers, they could
Yeah.
be, and get involved in other aspects of what we do, or maybe a new product altogether. And I think that's the thing is our online presence and our online interactions really help us build that offline base and contact list as well. So it's sort of a two-way thing. But yeah, it's completely invaluable for us, and obviously very low cost for us as well, as a means of kind of finding those people.
Yeah, perfect. So what have you learnt then over the last few years in terms of obviously we talked about what works content wise,
Yeah.
but what sort of things have you learned aside from that about your social strategy?
So I would probably say we probably have been, certainly in the past, been a little bit guilty of being quite reactive. So how our offline activity and design work and engineering feeds into the online can be a bit like, oh, we now suddenly need this, and then we just kind of put it out there without actually thinking, what sort of stuff do we want to put out there? How do we want to present it? And then looking at our projects and seeing how we could sort of formulate that. So it's a little bit chicken and egg in that maybe we haven't had that digital strategy, which we could then use and apply to the stuff we're doing. Which, you know, to an extent, it's still worked fine and it's been absolutely fine. And we've still achieved the results we've hoped for. But I think maybe just formalizing it a little bit and having that direction would just maybe help build on what we've already established. But there's something we are working on specifically this year is just having more of a formal digital strategy, as opposed to being more reactive, as I say. But we do, you know, we schedule content. We have like a content calendar, which, you know, because we're quite a multi-dimensional team, because we've got design and engineering, and we've got workshop, and we've got fundraising, and we've got WYSIWYG loan scheme. It's kind of quite a few people that will be doing different types of events or different projects. So it's really helps to structure what we talk about when, and if there's any key awareness days coming up that we want to join in with, it just gives us that opportunity to sort of look ahead and really work out what's going to work best for us. And then we theme it a little bit, so we always have a kind of happy story each week, which is quite often WYSIWYG related.
Brilliant. Do you do that like, do you have is it 2 weeks, 1 week, 1 month, 2 months? How far in advance do you try and get that done?
Kind of months to view is kind of how we tend to do it. We don't always schedule stuff ahead. Again, that's something we want to get better at as we kind of have extra capacity staff wise. It's kind of been a case of chasing our tail a little bit, because I am the only person who currently does it at the moment. So it's kind of like trying to be creative at the same time as planning, which can be a bit of a juggle because you want to do things a bit differently, but sometimes you haven't got time to, so you just do the same thing, and it's effective, but it can get a little bit samey. So hopefully we are looking to expand slightly this year, so that will give us more chance and more flexibility to maybe be a bit more creative with how we put the content out.
Nice. Because I guess you're just kind of as you say, working a little bit reactive, trying to think ahead, and creating similar styles of stuff, aren't you, in terms of the video or the text-based post? And what social media scheduling tool do you use, if you don't mind me asking? I like to ask everybody this.
So I actually just use the ones that are within the platforms themselves. I think Hootsuite is something we've used before, but I know that LinkedIn have their own scheduling now actually on there, apart from when you want to do video, I've noticed. So I still use Hootsuite if I'm scheduling video for LinkedIn. But most of the time it's actually within the actual planners and post builders themselves on each platform, which I guess maybe in terms of time effectiveness, it would be better to have one that sort of fits all, where we just
that's how they sell it to you, though, isn't it?
I know. And it never happens. And I think I've just never been fully sold on one over another. I'm part of a couple of Facebook groups for third sector comms, and people are always debating over which are the best ones to use. I don't think anyone's really ever had one come out top. So I guess there's pros and cons to all of them.
There is indeed. Or again, not to kind of go about what I tell people or advise, but always use the native scheduler if you've got like 2 or 3 platforms and you're able to do that. It's going to save you a lot of money.
I think it's really hard to know where to invest digitally sometimes, but I think so long as we can get by the way we're doing it, I think we'll probably continue to do that for the foreseeable.
Nice. So what part does social media play for you personally, out of interest?
So I have an Instagram page for my house and interiors.
Nice.
And I don't want to waffle on about it, but I saw that question. I thought, well, I'll raise it because it's quite interesting, because I do it outside of work as a hobby as well as obviously in work, but it is just Instagram. I don't do Facebook or anything for it. So I set it up when we bought our house in 2015 when we were renovating. So basically at the time I didn't have any friends or family who were renovating, and me and my husband hadn't got the foggiest clue how to do DIY or where to find the best paint or anything to do with an old house that needed a bit of TLC. And I think I just accidentally became aware that there was kind of this community on Instagram for renovators, for people doing it themselves, doing up houses. So I was able to find people that had decor I quite like and sort of poach ideas and get some inspiration, but also to just message people and just interact with people who could just, even if you just wanted to voice off about how stressful it was, because it could get really stressful living in a dusty old house. So yeah, I set it up then. So I was really just documenting, literally stripping paper and, getting people to plaster walls and all of that sort of stuff. And then it's just sort of evolved from there, really, because our house is pretty much, it's never done, is it? Houses are never done. And we're
No.
kind of redecorating now because some of the painting from 2015 is a bit tired. But yeah, so I basically just built from there. And sometimes I do silly videos on there about the realities of trying to do DIY with young kids, or just general day-to-day stuff. So it's a really nice outlet for me, though, because it's very different from work, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's completely my own. So it's completely my own voice, which I can put through work to an extent in terms of tone, but obviously there's certain brand guidelines we have to adhere to, as you'd expect.
Yep.
So it's quite nice to just have that place, particularly over the last few years when a lot of us were obviously pretty much in our houses 24/7. It's just a way to be able to got a friend again.
Hello.
To be able to just share ideas, but talk to like-minded people really all over the country. It's similar to work in that you can connect with people you never would have met generally had you not had a platform to talk and to find people. And that's kind of what I do.
What's your handle?
It is at Fee and Her House.
Nice. We will add that to the show notes as well.
Thanks.
Of course,
Thanks very much.
We are coming to the end of our podcast episode, and I'd love you to, before we get on to my fave, the social media fail, I'd love your top 3 tips for third sector comms workers getting started on social. How can they use it to provide value to their audiences?
Oh, top 3. So I guess I kind of being responsive, I think, is really up there. So kind of looking at what other similar organizations to the one you work for are doing, like what looks to be working well, how are they interacting with their audiences, when are they posting, how often are they posting. I think you can get really bogged down in, I need to post every day, which actually I sometimes think quality over quantity is key on social media. I used to think it wasn't, but I think it's tricky to beat the algorithm, because I think the algorithm quite often likes daily posting, depending on the platform. But I think you just have to do a bit of balancing act, really, and just see. So I kind of look at maybe effectively competitor organizations and see how they're doing it. I guess number 2 would probably be trying to get buy-in from your colleagues, because not everyone really gets digital, or they just think it's, she just sends out some tweets sometimes, and it's wishy-washy and all of that. So I think something I'd like to do, particularly at Designability, with people who maybe aren't as familiar with it, is just do a bit of kind of, not training as such, but just sort of informing people how it works and actually the mechanisms of it. And I think then people are more keen to contribute content. So if you need to capture some behind the scenes stuff with staff, or you've got a content idea that you need some involvement with people who aren't doing digital roles, I think that's really important that they've got that sort of awareness of its importance. And then number 3, I think you've kind of got to be a people person a little bit to do social. I think sometimes people think digital people are like hermits that don't ever go out because they sit behind a computer and that's it. But I think it really helps if you are a people person, because I think communicating offline to be able to tell those stories online is really, really crucial, really. Because I think if you build up that rapport, particularly when you're telling stories of people like beneficiaries, I just think if you'll get the best from people, and they'll feel relaxed, and they'll open up to you more, and then you'll be able to tell those stories online in a better way. I think anything like that is just going to improve your story and your narrative, and hopefully bring in donations or more service users, whatever your objective is.
Defo. Thank you, Fiona. I couldn't have said it better myself. Perfect top tips. It's been wonderful having you on the podcast on Beyond the Hashtag. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Before we wrap up, it's time for the social media fail. And this episode, talk us through what you've picked and what it is all about.
So I believe I picked the IHop rebrand when they did an April Fool joke, and they were going to rebrand to IHop instead of IHop. And it received quite a lot of mixed feedback because people were a bit confused about what on earth it was, and maybe didn't pick up on the joke very well because of how they worded it and how they presented it publicly. So that's what I selected. I think for me, I picked it because I think it was a really good example of how you could imagine them sat around a table discussing what this April Fool's joke was going to be, and oh, isn't that fantastic? And maybe one person led with it, and they were like, yeah, we'll do this, and we'll change this, and this will be the font, and oh, isn't that amazing? And actually, isn't it funny how then when you put it out and you click go and you click publish,
And you're
you
like,
just have no idea where it's going to travel and who's going to pick it up and how widely it's going to be seen. And I think sometimes brands don't always expect it to be as big as it is, even like bigger companies. And I think
yeah,
the way people interpreted it, I think sometimes, I know people say all news is good news. So, you know, even though they got some negative feedback, they were still getting exposure, and that's still PR. And actually, was it that derogatory to them? Not really. So it kind of
yeah.
still gave them that publicity they were obviously looking for.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Did it fit well with me? No, not particularly. Was it the worst thing I've ever seen? No, not either. But yeah, as I said, if it gained the traction, then that's what they were kind of looking for, really. So sometimes if you've got the confidence and courage to deliver on something which you're not sure if it's going to land, then fair play to you.
Yeah, give it a go sometimes, I think.
Yeah. Fiona, thank you once again. It's been wonderful talking to you and wishing you all the best of luck with the future at Designability. We'll continue to be the cheerleaders for you from your neighbours here in Corsham, and I'll speak to you soon.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
Take care.